consequential, but that they've just made them take the step in that direction. And it's really trying to connect maybe on a more human level with people about their background and what's led them to this position. Because, like, Dawkins, we know someone like Dawkins. I mean, he was, abused as a child by somebody within the church. We and this sort of, so his position that he was taking was against religion was way before he became a professor of evolutionary biology. That's been tagged on at the end as something that he uses to justify his position, but actually that's the cart before the horse. So I think. Really, we need people to be sincere, and that sometimes it might mean getting past the arguments and getting in contact with that person on a bit more of a human level and trying to find out where the motivation is. I'm going to make it easy. It's not easy talking to people who themselves may not be sure why they're in this position.
All right, Abu Yusuf, Jazakallah khairan.
Jazakallah khair.
Salam alaikum.
Alaykum salam wa rahmatullah.
Not sure. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum.
I am a Muslim from Middle East. I have like two questions, or maybe no. It's not a question. I want you to explain me a sentence. Actually, my English is not very good, but I'm gonna tell you the sentence. There is a famous saying which is, do what you want as long as you do not harm anyone. There are many homosexuals who says we do not harm anyone, so there is no problem. Is this thing a right thing?
Sorry? Do what you like as long as you don't harm anybody.
Yeah, they say this sentence.
Who's they?
Like homosexual, they say we don't harm anybody, so there's no problem to be a homosexual. Do you agree with that?
If it was a homosexual, I'll ask him what's the butt plug, but.
Okay, what is the meaning of...
the thing, you're moving into the realms of what's moral, what's right, what's wrong, all of these things, what's good, what's bad, and it's all subjective. And that goes back to my original point. You need an objective standard of morality. So why something is forbidden is irrelevant. The reality, we might be able to rationalize it, but if it's forbidden, it's forbidden. So,
okay, what is the meaning of freedom? Does it mean that you can say anything, whatever it's up to religion, belief, anything?
There's no such thing as freedom, mate. There is no such thing as freedom.
There's not freedom like French government. They say that this is actually a freedom. We didn't say something wrong. We just say the Muslims, they are like that, and.
But there's no such thing as freedom. There's no such thing as freedom of speech. There's permission of speech. So you can't say anything. You can say what you're allowed to say, and it has limits depending on what you're saying.
Okay, what is the limit?
Depends who's set the boundaries. So, for example, if you're in Pakistan, I'm pretty sure you can't say derogatory things about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you're in England, you can. So the ones in Pakistan, the leadership of Pakistan, set the limits in that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. That was sweet. Assalamu alaikum, Isan.
Hi, hello. Thanks for having me on. I'm just saying, I'm actually an atheist. I've joined on the chat for a bit, and I've listened to your arguments, and surprisingly enough, actually agree with a lot of them. But my issue is, with a lot of your arguments, you can say that there's a cause, that you can go back to a first cause, but you don't actually say anything about that cause. that cause could be anything. As you can say, like, what was the first cause? The must have been your first cause of the universe. And as Matt Dillahunty would say, well, how did you rule out universe creating pixies?
Okay, so you believe in the first cause?
Well, I don't actually, but what I'm saying is, I've heard your arguments about infinite regress and the contingency, and it's possible that the universe in some form could have existed forever. It's possible we've not shown energy to be created or destroyed in any way, so it's quite possible that energy could have existed, forever. I mean, clearly you guys don't have a problem with a God existing forever. So why not something like energy existing forever?
Can energy be created or destroyed outside of a closed system?
It's not been shown to be created or destroyed according to the second law of thermodynamics.
Isn't that within a closed system?
Because even within a closed system or any system, it's not been shown to be created or destroyed. We just don't have any examples of
thermodynamics was that energy can't be created or destroyed within a closed system.
No, it doesn't say anything about the system. It just says energy cannot be created or destroyed.
Doesn't it?
But it has to be within a closed system because it has to be within the context of the universe, right? You can't. You can't generalize. You can't generalize a rule within the universe to outside of it. That's actually impossible.
Well, why not? Because what we've got is the universe, okay, and in fact, all we have is just the universe because we don't know what's outside. We're at the limit of our physics. We can't test for anything outside of the universe.
Yeah, but physics
so
is only applicable
is just
to
what's
this
inside
universe.
the universe.
Okay,
the laws of physics are only applicable to this universe.
Okay, you said
as far as we know, because we've not able to test anything outside of the universe. Everything we say is
that's the reason. That's the reason.
Yeah, so everything we know is inside the universe. From everything we've seen from inside the universe, energy cannot be created or destroyed.
Yeah, but if you think about it, right?
To the Big Bang, but with the Big Bang, we don't know whether the Big Bang was the beginning of everything because it could have been something before that. Could have been cyclical. Energy could have existed for forever. It could have been multiverses, proto-universes. So you can go back.
Yeah, all right. So even with all of those interrogations, it's the same. It's the same argument, right? So if we wanted to grant you the idea that there's some energy that could not be created or destroyed, and somehow this energy is outside of the universe, okay, outside of the closed system, even if we granted all of that, the energy in question, okay, is it limited or unlimited?
Well, we don't know yet.
All right. If it's unlimited, then you're practically describing God, right? Because you're saying that you have an unlimited power, you have some kind of sovereignty, some kind of. If it's limited, then it's contingent. Obviously, God is not an energy. We don't say that God is an energy. But what we're saying is, if it's outside of the closed system of the universe, and it has an ultimate capacity, right? Then in that case, we are describing God, but we're just using different terms. You can use the term energy, you can use the word whatever you want, but what you're talking about is really an omnipotent force. I mean, it would seem to be the case. No. But so if it's unlimited, if it's limited, then the same questions would apply. So what is it dependent on? In order to be, what is it dependent on? Is it dependent on something which is dependent, or is it dependent upon something which is independent? And then if it's dependent upon something which is dependent, then you have an infinite regress of dependent things. And if you have an infinite regress of dependent things, for reasons mentioned before, you'd have an impossibility unless you can, because of we said, if something which is dependent it relies upon something else to exist. So if you can't have an infinite number of those things, you can't have an infinite number of things which depend upon or rely upon other things to exist.
Yeah, you're
and
just going back to the
require an
contingency argument. So basically, the whole thing is what you're trying to say is you're trying to create an infinite regress, and then say, well, something has to terminate the infinite regress. Therefore, my God. Whereas what I'm saying is,
I haven't said
we
my
don't
God.
know
No,
how
I just said
we
there's
haven't. Listen,
independent.
Isan, don't be disrespectful, mate. Don't misrepresent our position. That's not what we're saying.
Okay, but
have you heard us say "my God"? Have you heard us say these words? God.
No. Well, okay. Well,
I think when you opened up the discussion,
I've heard the argument lots of times, mainly from
all right.
Christians
This is the problem you see. Isan, I'd appreciate it if you don't bring other conversations you've had to this table and show us what you've been eating. We're not care. We eat what's at our table, yeah? So if respond to what we're saying, yeah? Don't infer things that we've not said and then argue against them, because obviously you know that's a straw man, isn't it? Anyway, go on. What are you saying, Imran? Sorry, just 1 second.
I was just saying, when you opened up the discussion, Hassan, one of the things you said was that we haven't done the conceptual analysis of what this initial thing is, which is right. So to posit that then in this question isn't so unreasonable, because we haven't done that analysis. But the fundamental principle we're trying to establish is that there has to be something. You can even use the word foundational, or we use the word contingent, uncaused, because whichever analysis you provide or whichever route you want to go down, you do end up with this infinite series of either causes or contingencies or whatever that might be. So at some stage, because it's impossible to cross an infinity in any conceptual way you'd like to cross it, there has to be a start point. And that's all really what was trying to be established. Now, you can analyze what this start point might be, and you're absolutely right. We haven't got to that stage in our discussion. But do you agree with that principle, that there has to be something that would have been either the uncaused cause or the independent or the uncontingent thing that would have been the foundation for existence or causality? Would you accept that or not?
Okay, yeah. I mean, I said I understand the infinity principle and the idea that of something being a first cause or the uncaused cause, your creator. But that's all that says, it doesn't say anything about that. All we say is, yes, we have an uncaused cause, we have a first cause, full stop. We don't know anything about it. And also,
so that's great. I think
multiple different religions have postulated their God as the uncaused cause.
Sure, I accept that. I accept that. So I think we agree on a lot then. So what we agreed is that there has to be this foundational thing. Now, a lot of atheists also talk about sort of, there's millions of concepts of God, but having many theories about a foundational thing doesn't negate the existence of the foundational thing. It just means that people have different concepts of that. The question is actually, how are we going to analyze this thing? And that's something that maybe we need to do, and maybe we need to go into. But what you've essentially agreed is there has to be something foundational. Now, the foundational thing, if we have to do a conceptual analysis of what this might be, and that might be the way to go forward, I think, because we seem to be in agreement, really, the way I'm seeing it. Our question now is, okay, what are the qualities or the attributes or what properties must this initial foundational thing have for it to be?
Yet.
Yeah. Well, there are ways of.
It doesn't necessarily have to still exist. It could have created everything and then ceased to exist after that. We don't know. We don't have any evidence for anything.
Yeah, but this brings me back to something I said. The idea that where are you getting your information from about this cause, and where are we getting our information from, and that's the difference. But we're not going into that in this particular stream. What we're establishing today in this stream is the fact that the idea to believe in the existence of a first cause of everything that exists isn't an unreasonable, irrational, illogical position to take. That's all we're establishing.
And there's one more thing I just want to.
Our arguments are
unreasonable or irrational. Well, I'm just saying that, even if I follow your arguments, all it does get to is a first cause. It doesn't say anything about that first cause.
Agreed. We're not doing that here.
Yeah, I just want to I say something. Just a response to one comment that you made, because it was actually an example that Al-Ghazali made in one of his books called Al-Iqtisas al-I'tiqad. Basically, you just said that the thing could create and see that. And And that's why it's important to distinguish between causation and dependency, because Al-Ghazali actually he made distinction between the two by saying, if I create a house and then die, and the house continues to live, continues to be thereafter, yeah, that's one state of affairs. But another state of affairs is if, when we talk about dependence, yeah, we're talking about something that you cannot exist without the thing existing as well. So there has to be, if you like, coexistence.
How do you know that's the case?
So if I say that the house is dependent on, or let's say, for example, in this case, it won't be a house. Let's make an easier example. Let's say, for example, a plant, yeah? It's not just caused by photosynthesis, but it depends on it. You get what I'm saying? So it's not just caused, in a sense, by the sun rays, but it depends on it. The moment that the sun rays are out of the equation for the plant, or maybe not exactly the moment, but it will cease to exist. In other words, for its continued existence, the plant requires the sun, not just for its initial existence. So there's a difference here between causation and dependence. And that's why it's important to use them together, because one is not really sufficient. I think causation by itself it doesn't solve all the major problems. So it needs to be with dependence as well. And that's why Ghazali, that's a beautiful example of the house.
How do you know it's not
you can
contingent?
The house and then
how do you know it's contingent? Sorry, how do you know it's not just causation, it's dependence as well? There must be a reason, because I haven't seen any evidence to suggest that it has to be dependence as well as causation.
What has to be?
Well, the way you've said, you've given the example of a creator in a house, then you gave the example of the sun and the plant to distinguish between causation at the beginning and dependence, so that it maintains its necessary existence. But I've not seen any evidence to say why the creator of the universe is a dependent, is causing a dependence, or was just the creator.
So you're saying there's no evidence that he's basically saying, I think, there's no evidence that the creator or cause of the universe is still around maintaining that universe. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Is that you can postulate there was a first
cause,
the
evidence is from.
This. I can give you
so
all of
basically,
that,
there's no evidence against the fact.
Sorry, please, just let me finish. Let me finish. I can, I postulate, or you could postulate all of that. That there was this first cause, infinite regress, unmoved mover, first cause, all of this, and then it could have just carried on like that. But then, what evidence do you have is that there's something that the first cause that started everything is still interacting with what was created and moved and caused?
So I'm not used the word interacting. So what I'm just saying is that so long as things continue to be dependent, they'll continue to be dependent on things, right? And that's just almost.
How do you know they continue to be dependent? That's what I'm trying to get at. How do you know they continue to be dependent?
Yeah. So you can assess that ontologically, and you can assess that cosmologically. So you can assess that literally using your five senses, and you can assess that using your mathematical mind as well. If you want to use your five senses, just look at yourself as a human body, right? I'm sure you realize
I do,
that.
yes, but I can't see anything that suggests there's the first cause or whatever it was you created is still.
No. What I'm saying is, let's take you as an example. Would you agree with me that you rely on something else in order? You relied and you continue to rely on other things in order to exist?
Yes, I do. I rely on the sun. I rely on oxygen, water, food. Yes, I do.
Yeah, so you're dependent.
I'm dependent on those things I listed. Yes.
Yeah. So there you have it. So in a sense, everything is dependent on everything that you can see in observation is dependent upon something else, right? In order to exist.
There are things that I'm dependent on to continue to exist. Yes, but they, no one's saying that they were the things that they were there that started everything in the beginning.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that not just you. That's one example. But what I'm saying is that in fact, all observable examples are examples of dependent things. Everything that you can think of empirically, every single thing that you can think of had to have a state of affairs before it, or even if you don't use the word before, that I'm not even going to use antecedent or preceded or whatever, that there was a state of affairs where it required something else in order to be, basically. Everything that you can observe requires something in order to be.
Well, you're just going back, you're just going back to that unmoved mover, but none of that.
No, I'm not, because
that unmoved mover
here
is still
there's a distinguishing.
interacting now.
There's a difference between causation and dependency, right? So causation is something which
we've
brings rise to phenomena.
We've established that the causation, but you're trying to say that the causer of everything, this created, is still interacting. And I'm saying is I don't see any evidence that
No, what I'm saying is not I haven't used the word interacting. I've just said that so long as there exists things which are dependent, then these things which are dependent will naturally depend upon something else, right? And that can't go on infinitely. So it requires something which is independent, and which all the dependent things will depend upon. And what we're saying is that that independent entity is in fact the ultimate explanation for the existence, the continued existence of everything in creation, or everything in reality, or everything in the world, whether you can see it physically or you can conceive of it extramentally.
You know, I understand what you're saying, but you inserted continued existence. I could just say that whatever it is that we've all agreed on is the cause of the existence, but then you said it's the cause of the continued existence without justifying why the word continued.
Now, I've said that the justification is this. The justification is it's impossible. Okay, so now I'm appealing to logical categories. It's impossible for there to be a state of affairs where things rely upon other things which are reliant upon other things ad infinitum. And the only way to break free from such impossibility is to introduce an independent entity through which all other dependent entities can derive its existence or exist because of.
You still haven't said why.
Mohammed, I think you're crossing each other. I think what Ihsan is saying, he agrees with you that the universe is dependent upon something to come into existence. What he's saying is, why does that mean? Does it still depend on something to exist?
Exactly. So what I'm just trying to say
I understand what you're saying. Can I ask you a question at this point, Ihsan, if you don't mind? Do you believe that the first cause is more powerful than anything we know?
I don't know anything about the first cause at the moment. I wouldn't say it has to be more powerful than anything we know.
Okay, I'll rephrase myself.
It could have been something that ceased. It could have been something that ceased to exist.
Let me rephrase my question, because you just jumped my question. I don't know why. It was a very simple question. Do you believe there's anything as powerful, anything that we know of powerful enough to create a universe?
We don't know anything about what caused the universe. So
do we know of anything? Do we know of anything that has the power to create a universe?
We don't know of anything that has the power to create the universe. No.
Right. And would you accept that the first cause of the universe created the universe?
Well, I'm going to give you the first cause thing. I'm just saying. All I say is I don't know whether the universe has existed in some form forever in terms of energy or matter.
Okay.
That was interchangeable or proto-universes. But what I'm saying is, if I give you, let me give you the argument that yes, there was a first cause. Okay, just for the sake of argument, let's say there was. I don't know anything about that first cause.
Okay.
I don't know how powerful or otherwise.
So do you believe this first cause caused the universe?
No, I'm not saying I believe first cause. I'm just saying I'm giving you that just to
what are you giving me?
The argument.
I'm taking it. What are you giving me? I don't understand.
Well, what I'm saying is I'm agreeing with you at that point, just to advance the discussion.
Yeah, but there's ramifications to accepting that. If you're allowing me that premise, I'm going to build upon it. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Please do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you accept then? So the first cause I'm referring to is the cause of the universe. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Let's say there is a first cause to the universe. Let's agree on that. Yeah.
Right. And do you know of any power in this universe that can cause a universe?
No, I'm not aware of anything that's powerful enough to create.
So then you agree that the cause of the universe is more powerful than anything we know.
Who's created the universe? Yes. Okay. I'd say it's more powerful than anything that we know so far. Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Do you believe that the cause of this universe will be more intelligent than anything we know?
I wouldn't put intelligence in because there's no evidence that an intelligence would be needed, because there's incredibly powerful things that we know so far, like black holes, supernova explosions. These things don't, these are incredibly powerful things that have no intelligence in them.
So with regards to fine-tuning and with regards to the respiratory system and the digestive system and all of these things, you think it's all accidents? Random?
Well, I mean, so there is randomness in part in the universe. Okay, that's true.
Do you think there's order to the universe or chaos?
There is order in the universe, but that's because it follows natural laws.
And where do these natural laws come from?
Natural laws could be within the inherent properties of matter. So things like, the protons and the electrons are oppositely charged. Now, there's no.
But why is it so that way? That's what I'm saying to you. See, you can't give me the paradigm of a first cause of everything and all of a sudden start talking as if there is no first cause and everything's random.
No, all I said was I said, let's say there is a first cause, but we don't have any evidence that the first cause is still causing things to happen.
No, but this is another story, you see. I said this earlier. How can we know about this first cause? If it exists, whether it still exists, does it maintain the universe? How would we know?
We don't know. We don't know.
How could we know? No. How could we know? How could we find out? What is the only way we could find out?
Well, the only way is just to carry on doing more scientific experiments. We know what's happened for just a few seconds after the Big Bang. We just need to do more and more physics experiments to find out more about the Big Bang, what was behind it, and cosmology experiments.
See, here's the thing you see, and this is why I said to this, I can't remember who it was on earlier. Our understanding of the cause is not based upon our observation. Yeah, it's based through revelation, isn't it?
Well, you would say that obviously as a Muslim, but others of other religions.
No.
Would say something different.
The only way we could know about this cause is if it reveals itself. We can't find out ourselves. It needs to be revealed to us, isn't it?
Not necessarily, no, because science can progress to the point whereby something could be found out about that first cause if there is one.
But science doesn't recognize the existence of the first cause.
It doesn't yet, but we don't know what will happen in the future.
No, but the point is we're talking about now, isn't it? And why we believe what we believe now. So this is the whole point of this stream. Do you think it's irrational to believe in the first cause of everything that exists?
I don't think it's irrational, no.
Right. So that's what we're establishing in this stream. Right? That's what we're establishing in this stream. And I think we've done very, very well. And our argumentation is the evidence to support that belief. Yeah? Now, you can throw your whims and your what-ifs and this and that and possibilities. It's up to you. Do as you like. The point here is this. Once we establish that position, that's when it moves on to revelation for us.
For you, yes. Yeah. Others can have their own revelations.
And all you've got at this position, at the stalemate we have, all you have is conjecture.
Could I just make a point, Hamza? Is that all right? So I think we're talking cross purposes. Maybe we're talking past each other. So we do. I think what you're asking, Hassan, and I think Hamza sort of got that. He sort of understood that was that the whatever the universe is dependent upon ultimately. What is there any evidence that this thing, whatever that is still there as something that is required for the continuation of whatever exists? And I think what Brother Muhammad Hijab was trying to say is that the fact that there are the dependencies don't suddenly go away. I mean, if you imagine stacking things on top of each other, if you were to take out the foundations of a house, for example, the walls would fall. There wouldn't be a point when you could remove the foundations and the house would keep standing.
Yeah, but that hasn't been demonstrated for the universe.
Sure, I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. So the question is how we would go about establishing that. That's what would be the thing. How would we go about establishing that the type of dependency that we're talking about? I.e., and temporal probably is not the right word to use, but we can say a temporal dependency or a perpetual dependency. Let's use those two phrases to try and describe the differences between these two things. Now, the position that's being put forward, and you can correct me, Brother Mohammed Jab, if I'm making this, because I'm not a philosopher by background or anything. And so the point that's being made is that the dependency that we're talking about is a perpetual dependency because, and the point being made was the point that I initially tried to make, was that these dependencies are about existence. They're not about causation per se. We're talking about causation, but actually we're talking about the fact that things exist. And the required, so for example, that, you know, if we were to go talking about the material world, we'll say like atoms, then there are, if you go within the atoms, you see quarks, and if you go even further, you see even more fundamental particles. Now, if you were to remove any of those things that the atoms depend upon, either fundamental particles, the atom itself wouldn't exist. And if you were to go further and further back, and if we even go to sort of quantum fields, if you were to remove a field, we may get rid of a complete set of fundamental particles that couldn't, appear in existence. And the universe, we would say, is a similar thing in that the thing that sustains the ongoing existence of any particular part of that or the whole is it requires the thing that it's dependent on to still be present.
How?
And so,
so
that's a great question.
So, that, but you need to provide evidence as to why that's necessary.
Sure. So I think that the fact that the fact that we can observe that this always happens, in terms of there isn't a thing that we can think of that you would remove the existence of that of the fund. Now, when we're talking about dependency in the sense that you were talking about sunlight, the sun, and photosynthesis, we're not talking about in that sense, but in the sense of existence itself, because that was the category initially that was being put forward. So if things that exist require at a fundamental level something else that is supporting their existence or enabling their existence, that's the you understand the wording, the way I'm putting it. So it's not really talking about causation, but the fact that the existence of something is dependent upon something else to exist. And if you remove that thing that it's dependent upon, that the thing that you're talking about in terms of existing initially wouldn't therefore exist.
All I'm saying is, I understand.
Is that correct, Mohammed? What I'm saying?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, like, what's your name again? Son.
Yes,
sir. Yeah. Can I say I understand your hypotheses. I understand your arguments and everything that's putting forward.
All right. Let me try and break it down a bit more.
Various assertions and statements.
No, I understand.
I don't see the evidence behind.
Okay, let me try and break it down a bit more. I think we're going to get agreement here. Let me just try and explain this. All right. So there's a tree outside here. Yeah. All right. Now, this tree, it's a living tree, and would you agree with me that it requires sunlight in order to exist?
Yes, I do. Yeah, for the tree, yes.
All right. Now, the sunlight comes from the sun.
Yes, yes.
And so the sunlight requires the sun in order for it to exist.
Yes, the sunlight obviously needs the sun to exist, yes.
Yeah. So the tree is dependent on the sunlight. The sunlight is dependent on the sun, correct?
Correct, yes.
All right. And are we talking about continued existence, or are we talking about causation?
Well, so far we know that the sun was created through a coalescence of hydrogen.
No, I'm not talking about the sun. I'm talking about the sun, the tree, and the sunlight.
Well, the sunlight is needed for the continued existence of the tree.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so the sunlight is required for the continued existence of the tree, and the tree is required for the sun is required for the continued existence of the sunlight.
Yes, because the sunlight obviously needs the sun to continue to exist. Yeah.
All right. Now we can go further than that, right? So the sun, you were just going into the details, the cosmological details as to what it requires for its continued existence. You were talking about hydrogen, correct?
The theory is the sun was created by a coalescence of hydrogen. We know most of the sun is hydrogen. I've not seen any
Good.
evidence that there is
All right,
something
so without
that
hydrogen, the
needs
sun
the
wouldn't
sun
be.
to continue to exist.
Yeah.
Whatever
So
caused the
could the
hydrogen
sun?
in the first place does not need to continue to exist now.
No problem. But the sun requires hydrogen in order to exist. If there was no hydrogen, there would be no sun.
Yeah, exactly, because the sun is mostly hydrogen anyway. It's about 80% hydrogen.
All right, very good. So the sun requires hydrogen in order to exist.
Yes, it's 80% hydrogen, and it was 100% hydrogen at its beginning. So yes, it
Are you a
needed
science
hydrogen.
teacher? You sound very informed on the topic, yes, sir.
I like to read a lot of science, yeah.
All right, very nice. Okay, so hydrogen now, we can keep going backwards. Okay, it requires the universe in order to exist.
Yes, because at the Big Bang, it was mainly an explosion, and well, as I said, it was an expansion, and most of that original part was hydrogen, and then later elements formed later.
And all these stages that we're talking about continued existence, right?
We're talking about yeah, there's some continued. So there was hydrogen, then it coalesced into forming various types of stars, which then exploded. And in those explosions, heavier elements were created, yes.
It's very good. Thank you very much. There's things you're telling me that I didn't know. Yeah, it's very nice. So all these points, we determined from the tree to the leaves of the tree, all the way up to the universe, that at every stage, for the continued existence of the thing, we require another thing, right?
There was a chain, yes.
Yes. Now the question is, the universe itself, does it require something else in order to exist, or do you think it does not require? It just requires itself. It doesn't require anything else in order to exist.
I've not seen any evidence that suggests that the universe needed something to continue to exist after it was initially created.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. Now, the question is this: is that anything with limited variables, okay, like the sun has limited variables, yeah? Anything with limited variables, is it reasonable for me to say that anything with limited variables requires something else in order to exist? Like the sun, for example, the tree?
Okay, so looking at, say, limited variables, there's no, I mean, the tree, yes, needs the sun to continue to exist. The sun has limited variables in terms of its physics, but, and the sun was formed from the coalescing hydrogen, but there's no evidence that since the sun was formed, so it needed something else to continue to exist to maintain it.
You mentioned hydrogen, though, right?
Yeah, but hydrogen is what it's made of, yes.
Yeah, so if there was no hydrogen, there would be no sun.
If there was no hydrogen, there'd be no sun, but the hydrogen was there to create the sun. The hydrogen's not there to, is not there to maintain that sun.
I get what you're saying, but you know, you would agree with me that if hydrogen didn't continue to exist, the sun couldn't continue to exist.
If hydrogen didn't exist, I mean, if hydrogen in the sun, say, disappeared, then the reactions would stop. So yes, it's because it's what it's made of. Yes.
Yeah, and likewise, if the universe didn't continue to exist, hydrogen within it could you say that can continue to exist?
So if the universe continued to exist, the hydrogen say would continue to exist.
Right. So now we're asking the question, right? Or the logic that we're applying at every stage here, right? My question is, because why are we applying this logic? Because we know the tree has limited variables. It's limited, right? So it requires the sun, which is also limited. So it requires hydrogen, right, in order to be. And now we're saying, is the universe, does it have limited variables or unlimited variables?
The universe, I mean, as far as we know, it follows physical laws, that are part of it. Things like gravity, strong force, nuclear forces. But we don't have any evidence that there's something that it's dependent on anything else.
No, I'm saying, is the universe made up of a limited set of things, or is it not made up of a limited set of things? Is it unlimited? Has it got infinite amount of things in it? Is there an infinite amount of hydrogen, oxygen, whatever it is you want to say? Has it got an infinite amount of X in it, or does it have a finite amount of these?
It's not an infinite amount. It's a set amount, and the universe is expanding. But it can't be. It'd be illogical for it to have an infinite amount of
good. So
matter.
if it's not infinite, it must be finite, right?
There's a finite amount of matter and energy in the universe, I would say, yes.
Yes. So just like there was a finite amount of matter and energy in the tree, and just as there was a finite amount of matter and energy in the sun, and there is now, we've established a finite amount of matter in the universe itself. And in all three cases, we've determined where there is a finite amount of matter and energy in something, it's always going to require something else in order to exist. So is it reasonable for us to say now that the universe, because it has a finite amount of matter and energy, just like the tree and the sun, also it follows the same pathway, if you like, and it requires something else in order to exist?
I wouldn't say that's absolutely necessary, because we don't know. The limits of science don't say that. All we know is what's in the universe. We don't, I agree that the universe has got a finite amount of matter and energy from what we know. But you can't extrapolate that far backwards or outside of the universe to say that because of that, there must be something maintaining that.
Okay, so you've got two options. Either the universe is independent, or the universe is dependent. What we're saying is that anything made up of limited variables, matter and energy, to use your words, is dependent. If we agree that the universe is made up of matter and energy, and could we not just say that the universe therefore is dependent?
No, I think that's too much of a jump to go. I think the best thing to say is we don't know yet.
Okay, but can I just ask you a question, Isan? I'm following it. Why do you believe that the independent cause of the universe disappeared?
I didn't say that the independent cause. I just say that we don't.
You did.
know
You
yet.
said it could have gone or could have disappeared.
No, yeah.
I mean, do you understand the nature of what we're saying?
Gone.
What?
I'm saying it could have gone. It could still be here. It could have gone. We don't have any evidence to suggest either.
Right. So just in the same way that the universe could still be dependent upon that cause.
It's a possibility, but don't have any evidence either way.
Yeah. Okay. That's why I said we're at a stalemate, and then we bring revelation to the table. So all we're saying is it unreasonable for us to hold that position?
You can bring revelation, or you can just say
no. But is it unreasonable for us to hold that position?
I would say that if you don't know, it's fine to say you don't know, but I wouldn't.
Is it unreasonable?
Just choose anything to fill the gap.
No, we're not doing that. Is it unreasonable to believe that because we see, like Brother Hijab Basha did a beautiful job explaining from the tree to the sun to the hydrogen to the universe and such, we see this pattern. Is it unreasonable to believe this pattern continues? And that the universe, because we can't demonstrate the universe is independent, can we? Or can we?
I think the most reasonable position is just to say that we don't know.
No, that's what you say. And then if you don't know, then you shouldn't say we're wrong to hold that position, then should you?
Well, I'm saying
can I just make a quick point?
You can head towards a particular area, but you'd be completely wrong to say with absolute certainty one way and have complete faith in that one way when there's no evidence to go one way or the other. So
no, but if we're saying that uncaused cause has always existed, that's what we're saying. You're trying to say it's you think it's unreasonable to believe. You're saying if we believe an uncaused cause has always existed, you're trying to say it's unreasonable for us still to believe it still exists?
No, I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying it's unreasonable to believe it still exists. I'm saying it's unreasonable to have total unchanging faith that that's the case, even, you know, if that is what you're actually saying, if you're saying that you're inclined to believe that way, then, you know, that's understandable. But if you're going to go along the line of having total faith that this is, the uncaused cause is still there and is still maintaining, then I'd ask for what evidence you have for that.
No. I'll say it again to you. Is it unreasonable for us to believe this?
Unreasonable for you to believe in an uncaused cause that's still maintaining?
No,
is that what you're
for
saying?
me to believe in an uncaused cause of everything that exists still existing.
No, I wouldn't say it's unreasonable for you to have some sort of belief that could still exist. No, but you know, I would suggest holding off, you know, having total faith without more evidence.
No, but then, like I say to you, I'm not sorry. I'm going to let you in now. That's what I say to you. So when we're at this position, then how can we find out what the reality is? And obviously, we believe the uncaused cause has revealed its nature, and that's what fills in the gaps. Not because we don't know and we just put God there. We believe in revelation, which is again is another story and another stream. But the point here is this: we're just establishing the foundations of what we believe, and we're demonstrating that it's not illogically rational or unreasonable to hold this position. And it is irrational for an atheist. I accept your opinion. Yeah, but it is irrational. One second. It is irrational for an atheist who doesn't know to tell us our position is false, wrong, irrational, illogical, because they themselves don't know. Would you agree with that?
I agree. If we don't know, it would be wrong to say that you are completely
not just wrong.
All I'm saying is
not just wrong. It'd be irrational.
We would say is, you know, you wouldn't have the evidence. Okay, let's put it another way. You know, if you look at, say, Chinese mythology, they believe everything was created by Pangu. Would you say that was irrational?
I would ask why they believe everything was created by Pangu.
Could I speak on that, please? So I think, sorry, Hassan. So I think just to answer this particular. So I said before, I think just a few moments ago, that multiple theories of a concept don't make that concept unreal. The fact that you can you can have different theories about how something is, it doesn't take that thing away. So that we have a way of explaining which is probably not the point here, of why there are different concepts of the creator. That's not really the issue. Brother Hijab had a discussion with you, quite profound, in the sense that he established what I was trying to sort of say, in that the dependencies are continued dependencies, and he sort of showed that by going through this this sort of working from the sort of the plant all the way through to the sunlight and to the sun, and then to the hydrogen.
And I said that you could extrapolate that to the universe.
Yeah. So that's where precisely. So that's where that you stopped. Now, what I would say is, this is similar to when I'm speaking to some atheists who talk about causality, and then when it comes to the universe, they say that causality may not actually exist. They sort of take away this principle that was being applied, almost in an ad hoc way, it seems to me. Whereas what I'm doing in terms of trying to establish my thought process is having a consistent principle and applying a coherent method without an ad hoc change, because I get to a stage where there are physical limitations in terms of scientific approach, because science is just focused on nature. It's a heuristic approach in the sense that it makes models but doesn't claim to know what reality is. It makes models of that reality that we can apply and we can use. So I would say that the position that we're taking is a consistent one, in that we can see that these are continued dependencies or the continued contingencies that go on, and then we end up in that same scenario of coming to a fundamental contingency, fundamental thing that would be necessarily in contingent and a necessary thing. Now, what are the qualities of this thing is probably the things that we need to probably talk about a little bit, and maybe that's not what this stream is for. And I would really have enjoyed talking to you, actually, and I'd like you to come on to our other streams when we talk about these things.
Thank you.
One more thing before you switch that, I just wanted to ask Hassan a question that maybe will help.